The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome back for this second session today at Join Digital, episode 2. Whether you're with us live right now or perhaps watching on demand, a big thank you for watching. If you missed our first session today, then I really recommend you go back and take a look for the on-demand recordings. They're going to be available on Friday this week. That session looked at customer data transformation and a roadmap for how to enact change in your organization. Some great advice in there for how to create that change in your business. Something I know that a lot of marketing leaders are attempting to do right now as we all prepare for a post-COVID consumer change in behaviors. On to this next session, however, and I'm delighted to have a panel of 3 of the brightest minds in our business at BlueVenn. We've actually aggregated together a list of the top 10 customer data platform questions that are out there. These have been collated from questions that we get regularly asked, but we've also added common CDP questions from across the internet, and also some of the top questions that the marketing analysts at Gartner get regularly. I'll be posting these questions to the panel, so if you're considering a CDP or maybe you have already made the investment, then these could be some good answers to questions that you could have as well. As this is a top 10 Q&A panel session, we're not actually going to be answering any additional questions from the floor at the end. That would stop it being a top 10 Q&A. But if you do have something you'd like to ask the panel, then please do add it into the webinar technology. We do get back to everyone after the sessions, so we'll do that if you do have a question you want us to answer. And finally, remember, we do have 2 more sessions after this one. You'll receive reminders for those, as you have done for this one, 10 minutes before the session begins. So later on, we've got an interview with David Raab from the CDP Institute, and Gabby, who's on the session today, is going to be doing another session on multi-touch attribution and how you can apply that to your business to make profitable change. I do want to caveat as well, just before this, I'm personally having some internet issues, so I do have my colleague Jen on standby. So if I do cut out, then Jen will be taking over. Okay, so let's begin. So the panel today includes Jim Kelly. Jim is our principal consultant here at BlueVenn, and someone who has consulted with many hundreds, well, if not thousands of marketeers across a very extensive career in database marketing. Gabrielle Schneider, our lead solutions consultant in the US, and Matt Diamond, who's our solutions consultant for UK and Europe, and a regular contributor to BlueVenn webinars, content, and blogs. Okay, so on to the first question. Now, this is a question that has come actually from online activity as well as Gartner and ourselves. So it is quite a popular question, which is, can we create CDP-like benefits with our homegrown solutions? Who wants to start that one?
I can take that one. It's a question that we get quite a lot. In my experience, organizations asking this have spent time and resources building a data lake or data warehouse functionality in-house, and they want to understand how they can realize benefits from these tools or justify additional investment in a CDP when they've already invested internally. I think there are really a few considerations for an organization. Typically, a CDP is going to be marketer controlled and focused on customer-related information such as contact information, activities, behaviors, and transactions. And the whole goal is to create that single customer view, which provides the marketer with the ability to more effectively segment and target their audience. Data lakes or data warehouses can certainly play a role in centralizing this information, and in many instances, customer data is included, but it's not just customer-focused data within a data lake or a data warehouse. It's data from all over the organization, some of which may be relevant for marketing, but much of it not. And extracting it requires a team with knowledge of complex query writing. What you end up with then is a process where marketing has to make a request, wait till they get the data back, hope the result's actually what they were looking for to begin with, and then try to action on it. Depending on your organization, this could take a couple hours, a couple days, even longer, depending on what you're asking. So while you can realize the benefits of having the data centralized, the time it takes to get it into the hands of marketing can hinder their ability to access and act quickly. I think the other consideration here is the maintenance and development of the solution. Vendors put thousands of hours of research and development into building and maintaining their solutions and staying up to date with the latest needs for their customers. And for organizations who are building a homegrown solution, this can be cumbersome and overwhelming, trying to not only set this up to begin with, but maintaining it over time to meet the needs of all of the stakeholders within the business.
That's a really good point, Gabby. I think integration capabilities is something else that's worth considering. You know, as marketing technology changes, marketers want to be able to quickly adapt and easily connect to the systems in their stack. And CDP vendors generally have a range of pre-built integrations that allow these teams to adapt and evolve quickly, both in terms of, you know, new channels coming in and new data sources as well. So with an in-house solution, integrating a new system, you know, more often than not requires custom development work, and in some cases, depending upon what's been built, integration is not actually possible at all. So the reality really is then, if you're using things like ETL or other similar tools and piecing together manual processes around these technologies, then yes, you probably can achieve some CDP-like benefits using a homegrown solution. However, the trade-off really is a lack of marketer focus and marketers' access to data, as well as the ongoing maintenance requirements for that system and all of the integrations that are associated with it as well.
Sounds good to me. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a question that we're asked often. So why can't we do this ourselves? Historically, everybody did, and historically, lots of people got it wrong. The customer data platform industry and market is geared specifically to meet this requirement, though. So it's kind of like, can I build my own car? Well, yeah, you can, but why would you want to? Next question, really.
Yeah.
I think we asked that one.
Sorry, it's me keeping the flow going. So next question, which I know is one that, well, personally for myself, it sounds a little bit daft, but actually data cleansing and data quality improvements are not native to all CDPs. So this is a pretty key question, and I know it's number 2 with Gartner. Will a CDP improve our data quality issues? Jim, do you want to perhaps pick that one up?
Yeah, sure. And you're absolutely right to refer back to your point there, that if you look at the CDP marketplace, there are a couple of players in there which actually don't specifically, it's not one of the core competencies, if you like, of their platform is to improve the data quality. But data quality is a challenge faced by pretty much all marketeers at some point, and fixing it is generally right up there at the top of the priority list. But more and more marketeers that I speak to are investing a lot of time into personalizing the customer experience and trying to make it much more relevant, the right message, right time, all that stuff. And even when you extend that out to more advanced usage like next best action, personalizing the customer experience from end to end, in order to do it effectively, you really need data that underpins it. If you have wrong information, wrong data, it's incorrectly spaced out or not usable, then every decision you make thereafter is wrong. The easiest example really is if I'm filling out an online data form and I type in my name in all uppercase, let's say, I provided that data in a format that I wasn't really thinking about. And the organization emails me, I open up the email, and the first line is my salutation. It says, "Hi, Jim," and it's all in uppercase. Instantly, I read that, and my first thought is, it's not my fault that I put it all in uppercase, but I've just judged the brand because they haven't fixed it. It's just really simple things like that. But then when you extend it out further to incorrect email addresses, inaccurate home addresses, now it becomes more about compliancy. So if you look at GDPR in the EU, CCPA in the US, and all the compliance and governance which is changing as we go forward, even in the United Kingdom, we have a document being circulated by the Information Commissioner's Office that talks about the requirement, your legal requirement to maintain good quality, clean data. So will a CDP improve the data quality? Absolutely, because if it doesn't, it's not meeting the compliance requirement that you have. CDPs that cleanse and standardize data, they really need to be helping with the issue around data quality. And the good ones do it in a few different ways. They ingest data from all of your disconnected data sources and standardizes it as it actually comes in. So if you have different dates of different date formats in lots of different operational systems, the number one job is to actually address that and make sure it's all standard. Number two is the CDP will correct data inaccuracies like bad addresses, cleaning records, enhancing the data by populating missing information, that sort of thing. A CDP, for the third example, will merge and deduplicate matching customer records from different systems and platforms and across channels, obviously. Number three, we actually call the identity resolution piece, but certainly that's a really key requirement of the data quality. And fourth really is the unified data being pushed out to other systems of record within the business. So if you can imagine having a CRM platform or a call center platform that allows you to manage and bring up a customer's data as you're interacting with them, having more accurate information in that system as well as in the customer data platform is one of the core competencies of a CDP. There are a whole range of organizations that we've worked with, and there are some real horror stories about the first line of the address being things like, please leave it in the bin behind the fence. We've had organizations that had handwritten email forms that would be handed out on airlines. They were subsequently rekeyed manually and were just awash with error. Not all problems can be fixed, and that is the reason why the question is the customer data platform improving data quality. Absolutely, it needs to, not just should it. It absolutely needs to. You got anything to add there, Gabby?
Yeah, I think my last thought would just be really that, you know, once you have this cleansed and accurate data that drives more than just you know, accuracy, it ensures that you can segment more effectively and target your customers with more accurate and relevant content, because you know that you're working off of cleansed and accurate data. And ultimately, I think that makes you more effective as a marketer. But that's really, I think, the last bit I'd add there.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, going back to your horror stories, Jim, I remember one customer we found to be trying to send direct mail to lampposts. Anyway.
Very good. But it's just as a final point on that, it's really not a question of should a CDP improve the data quality. You legally have an obligation to have cleanest data that you can maintain. So having a platform that claims to be a customer data platform but actually doesn't address that key requirement, I would question it's the right one.
Great, thanks guys. This third one, this third question, I know is a very, very popular one now to our website. It's actually a question I'm going to be posting to David Raab in the session after this as well. So it'd be very interesting to compare and contrast. How does a CDP differ to a master data management solution? Gabby, maybe do you want to have a look at that one?
Yeah, so I think there are a number of solutions, CRMs, master data management solutions, that at a passing glance end up being compared to a CDP, and we often get asked, how do they ultimately differ? And I think, different organizations have slightly different views on what master data management means to them and what's included, but at its core, it's really a set of processes that is used to standardize across the organization. But I think the key thing here, though, is that it's not a product. It's a set of tools and processes to accomplish the centralized structure within the organization. And going back to what we were talking about with homegrown solutions, these aren't typically focused exclusively on customer data, and they're not generally geared just to marketing. It's intended to serve the needs of a lot of different stakeholders within the organization, and is reliant on the IT team managing the solution and extracting the data. And while CDPs, I think, can be considered a form of customer-centric master data management, making sure that everything is unified and accurate and reliable, they do so in a way that focuses on the customer and focuses on making that available for the marketing team in a way that's a bit different than what we traditionally see with master data management. It's also really purpose-built to connect all of these customer-related systems and focus on giving marketers who have limited access to IT resources the ability to unify their data and realize that persistent golden record without needing to involve IT. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why we see people coming to look at a CDP in the first place. Matt, any other things you're seeing there?
Yeah, I think, Gabby, you've mentioned connecting customer-related systems. I mean, the key function of the CDP, as Jim sort of been mentioning, is getting the CDP to actually connect all of those different execution channels together, and actually enabling marketers to actually orchestrate all of those complex cross-channel campaigns. Now, I know when I talk to teams about their MDM and the MDM systems they use, it's the ability, and then also the inability to actually set up those integrations that really limits how marketers are actually able to leverage the data to set up and execute all of those campaigns. But in short, really, then, it's sort of MDM is all sort of about, it's great for centralizing all of the organization's data, managing standardization of that data that's being held as a product for another sort of entity within the business, but also ensuring that that data is shared around the organization. But as Gabby's already said, it's not about being built for marketing. It's not, sort of tracking and managing the breadth and the scope of customer data. It requires IT resource to manage, and it's limited in how it can connect to marketing and execution channels as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. So on to Customer Data Platform frequently asked question number 4. Now, we know customer data platforms are for marketeers, and that marketeers get a lot of benefits out of that. But what are the benefits for non-marketing departments from a CDP? And sorry, Gabby, I'm going to come to you again.
Yeah, no worries. So I think, like you said, we talk about a lot of the impacts for marketing, but there are certainly impacts within the broader business. The first group that really comes to mind for me is that sales team. You're deriving a lot of insights about the customer within the CDP. We're understanding key information about them, but that can be leveraged by the sales team to understand who's most likely to buy the product or service on the prospect side, and knowing who to more effectively target with our various campaigns and where to focus our efforts on the right types of prospects to improve our overall opportunity. And generally, sales teams don't need to have access to the CDP to utilize these benefits or see the benefits from it. We can, connect to other tools that a sales rep may be more frequently using, like a CRM, to ensure that they have access to the insight they need without needing to, be in the CDP solution with the marketing team, but still being able to leverage those insights that they're gaining as well as working in conjunction with marketing to understand what's the overall journey as individuals receive messaging, being able to flag them to have follow-up by a sales rep, and understand that how all these pieces play together can really be a benefit, not just for marketing, but also for the sales team as well. Jim, I know you talk to a lot of people within organizations. Are there other groups that you're seeing?
Yeah, I connect regularly with business intelligence teams, those that are responsible for issuing reports for all of the organization. Anything from SPSS users or SAS users or R users, anyone who needs access to accurate customer data, clean, accurate, trustworthy customer data. It also really helps them all to use the same language because all the attributes have the same name, right? So it enables all of those teams to really focus on analyzing data rather than manually machinating it into something they can use. Some CDPs also ingest outputs from those teams. So Excel, BI decisioning, modeling, Azure AI, TensorFlow, all of those things can also be used against the CDP. So it actually doesn't matter what team you're talking to. If they receive any form of the customer data, even creating dashboards which are used across the whole organization, it allows all the teams to leverage the same clean, accurate underlying data that the marketeers use. It just so happens that marketeers are the first people in a company to ask for clean data.
I think that's a really good point, Jim. I think the other two teams, when you talk about clean data, that spring to mind for me, it's really sort of the IT teams and the compliance teams as well when we're talking about benefits from CDP. As we've already said, because CDPs are productized, and it's down to the vendor, not the internal IT resource that's tasked with maintenance and the monitoring of the solutions. And that in turn then frees up the internal IT teams to manage all of the other things that they have and all the other priorities that they have within the business as well. But when I think about the compliance team, obviously CDPs are in because we're bringing all the customer data together. It's about them being able to provide all of the data traceability and all of the organization's ability to manage customer data from that one centralized database. And some CDPs are also enabling you to actually use various data access reports from within the system and do that at a click of a single button, removing all of the manual data handling processes, all of the other sort of manual processes around the serving of those different compliance reports and everything else as well. So I think it's not, Anthony, it's not just about marketing benefiting. There's a whole host of business departments that benefit from the CDP.
Okay, thanks guys. Conscious of time, so we need to maybe just make sure we keep at a good pace. I'm going to go to the next question. Now, I hear a lot about no-code and low-code software applications these days. It seems to be one of the buzzwords. So what technical coding knowledge is required to run a CDP solution?
Well, I can take that one, Anthony.
Okay.
I think short answer really is very, very little, depending on the role that you have within the organization. In a lot of cases, it's absolutely none. So during sort of setup for a CDP, there's usually some technical resource involved in terms of actually understanding the data and getting access to the data. But once the solution's actually up and running, the whole idea is to be able to put the tools of CDP in the hands of marketers without needing them to have all of those technical coding skills to be able to work with the data. But it's not just about giving them those tools to manage sort of analytics and visualization side of things as well. It's also about providing them with an interface where they can actually map in all the new data sources that they may have as the business expands, whilst actually being able to then save time and all of the associated financial costs around managing data, and then being able to actually ultimately execute the campaigns all from within a single solution. I mean, Jim, have you got any further thoughts on this?
Yeah. I have had quite a few clients over the years that have asked, but we actually have people who are SQL players. They like to code with SQL, can they be SQL programmers still? And really that comes down to, we don't, so us as an organization, we don't enforce a way of working. We have both drag and drop and SQL, but some products I know are purely workflow based. You can actually write both SQL or use drag and drop in order to get to what you need to get to in our world. But in short, I would agree with you that someone with technical knowledge is required to onboard a client, because we have to understand their data and what has to be plugged into. But once the solution is configured, it actually requires very little technical skill to maintain.
Great, thanks, guys. Okay, so this next question is one that I actually used to hear quite, all the time. Maybe in the US, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the UK, maybe a couple of years ago, but it's very prevalent again now, particularly across France, Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland. I'm thinking in particular, certainly where we saw some increased traffic when we looked at the key phrases on the internet. So so the next question, what are the key differences between a customer data platform and a DMP, or data management platform? Maybe Gabby, do you want to look at that?
Yeah, I can take that. So I think this is a question I still get quite a bit, particularly when I'm talking to organizations that are leveraging a lot of digital advertising, trying to understand how to use their customer data to aid in these efforts, and really target appropriately. And the other time is really when we're trying to understand the overlaps or the interactions between the two systems, and how their approach to managing customer data is different, which can, bring to light a number of different factors between the differences.
I think that's from my side, Gabby, I think that's a really good point. But I think there are a number of differences between a CDP and a DMP, and they're all sort of centered around the use cases for each solution. So if we think about a DMP first, the whole idea of a DMP is it's focused on delivering against sort of acquisition marketing targets by enabling the placement of sort of targeted and hyper-targeted advertising on various digital properties. Whereas the CDP, on the other hand, is all about managing customer data. It's about creating that cleansed and robust and unified view of data that we've been talking about. And it's that view that has all of the PII, or personally identifiable information, that can then be shared with all of the different channels and all of the different teams around the business as well.
Great, guys. So on initial explanation, sounds as though both are fairly similar in terms of managing data and enabling businesses to engage with their customers and prospects.
I can see why you'd say that, but it's the usage and the use cases behind each one, really, and the devil is in the detail. So a data management platform is a precursor to where you put your data in order to advertise online. It's an advertising channel, and the DMP really at its core is all about managing device cloud data. So although you can put PI or personal information into the DMP, you're only doing it to enable the DMP to have a better device match rate. You actually can't take that out, and you can't expose that either. So the DMP really is about using behavioral data and online activity to target advertising and retargeting. That's really what it's for.
Okay. I mean, as you said earlier, then as you guys have said, if a customer data platform is all about managing the creation of the single customer view, then and I do want to stay on this point because it is one that is asked a lot. We've got a big European audience on today, so I guess the follow-up question is: how does a CDP and a DMP work together, or don't they?
They absolutely do. A DMP, as I mentioned, is an advertising channel. So if you're looking at the broader business context and the use around a CDP, it's all about bringing multiple data sources together. You can't take data out of a DMP, so it's not a data input, but it's definitely a channel that you execute advertising through. In fact, I don't think I have many customers, clients, I should say, that don't have a DMP as well as their CDP. It's the DMP that manages the placement of advertising based upon CDP decisioning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, well, moving on to the next question then, because we are a bit pushed for time. We can run over a little bit, but that's okay. Hopefully you can all stay on line as well as we cover the last 4 questions. So the next one, how does a customer data platform create its unified customer profiles? Matt, do you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. So I think it all starts with connecting to the business's source systems, those operational systems, and actually bringing the data all into one place. And I think it's sort of key to point out here that the whole idea of the CDP is that it's completely agnostic to where the data is coming from. So it can be from absolutely any system, being transferred by any sort of method that's appropriate to actually get at the data as well. But I think the real thing here is it's about actually being able to use that most appropriate method of data transfer to get all of the data into one place. But it's about applying those processes and automating them to actually manage all of that extraction, transformation, and loading. Setting up the ingestion templates so that you're actually able to then sort of standardize the structure of the data as it comes into the platform, and really allow the ongoing automation of the ingestion process with no sort of additional manual effort or manual process that's involved as well.
Exactly.
Jim, have you got anything to add at this point?
Yeah. I was just going to say that once the data is ingested, it is in its rawest form. So the CDP then moves on to checking it, validating it, standardizing it. It's all about ensuring that the data is presented in the same way across multiple systems. So all of the date formats, the currencies are 2 simple examples. It's also worth mentioning that most CDPs will also offer blacklisting and whitelisting at that stage. So that's a list of data that it will and won't accept, a list of data values. A classic example of that is salacious name screening, where you don't want customers or potential customers to register with inappropriate names or swear words in their names, because that tends to find its way onto social media, which embarrasses your brand. That would be an example of the whitelisting, but absolutely right, yeah.
Nice. Thanks, Jim. I mean, the other thing that's kind of come to my mind as well, once we've got these blacklists and whitelists and all the other rules that we have, and we've got this clean data, it's then about actually taking it through that matching, merging, and DG process. And obviously, this is going to occur within each individual source as well, and then across all of those different data sources. And I think it's worth pointing out that this can be using something like a deterministic approach that's leveraging PII and all of the other identifiers to actually unify the various data points together and come to an exact or as close as possible match based upon the ingested data. But there are also options with a number of CDPs to actually leverage a probabilistic approach to matching as well, where we're using something like an identity graph to manage these sort of looser probability-based matching approaches as well.
Yeah, I've seen both deterministic and probabilistic matching used successfully. I have seen probabilistic matching also used badly. It's hard to use a deterministic matching badly. It tends to be safer and more accurate.
No, I think that's a really fair point, Jim, as well. But I think just thinking about what we're actually trying to achieve here then is it's really about being able to actually wrap a level of human intelligence around the data, do that in the form of the business rules that we're using to match and bring the data together, and ensure we end up with that robust, trustworthy data foundation that we can then use throughout the business as well. But I think the other thing that's probably worth mentioning here is a little bit around the enhancement of data as well. I know from my own conversations, I've spoken to a number of clients who across B2B, B2C, and B2B2C verticals. They've spent a lot of time utilizing the CDP's capability to really be able to add value to their data, suppression, bereavement registers, address changes, phone suppressions, postal suppressions as well.
I agree with that, Matt, and I think it's also too about being able to append other valuable data, things like wealth and life stage data on the B2C side, or on the B2B side, leveraging third-party data to add things like financial performance, industry codes, and understanding more about this ownership to really add relevance to the overall communications.
Yeah, the final point I just want to add there is that CDP is about automating all of these processes. It's about creating traceability, governance, and enforcing the legislative compliance that we all now have. This is critical, right? It's automating the compliant requirements we have to adhere to.
Great, thanks all. So we've got 3 questions to go. We've just gone over the half an hour, so just need to keep moving with these. The next question: how does a CDP improve our marketing campaign results?
I can take that one, Anthony. So in my head, we almost need to split this question into 2 parts. Sort of consider the data foundation provided by the CDP and how that improves results over time, and then also explore how being able to use that data to actually enhance cross-channel coordination as far as what impact that has. So thinking about the data, I think due to the fact that the CDP is actually allowing businesses to make decisions upon that trustworthy, reliable data foundation, we've been talking about this a little bit on the session so far. This is all about understanding how offline behaviours, how they combine across different customer journeys, different channels, and then it's about how those behaviours translate to the actions that customers actually carry out as well. So I think what we're really saying here is that because we have clean and trustworthy data, all of our targeting, our insights, profiling, it's inherently always going to be a lot more accurate. And that's before we've even started to think about the impact of better coordination with all of our channels and all of our communications as well.
I think ultimately it's not just about understanding the data, but being able to decision against it more effectively that becomes key and critical.
Cool.
Actually, I do sort of think as well, there's a whole thing about being able to be a lot more targeted, a lot more relevant in sort of the market as it's moving today, especially with everything that's happening at the moment with the whole COVID outbreak and everything else as well.
Okay, thanks guys. So our penultimate question is what data should go into a customer data platform, and are there any limitations?
Yeah, so I think the initial answer to this is pretty simple. Any and all data that marketers or other users wish to leverage as part of kind of their day-to-day activities should go in there. Putting it simply, if it adds value to you and it adds value to your activities, it should be included. So I think it's worth considering all the broader data sets, but at the end of the day, it's about finding those different pieces of data that are going to bring value, and that's ultimately what should be included.
Great, thanks, Gabby.
No, I'd agree with that as well, Gabby. I think the other thing to think about as well, I mean, Jim, I don't know if you've got some thoughts on this, that data sharing as well and how attitudes have changed that over time. I mean, I know we've had the shift in the interaction that social media channels will let us have with all of the data and how we interact with those.
Yes, social media data is important, and as you know, so we could talk about this for hours, but in the interest of people being able to carry on with their days, that's really a bigger question. But I would go back to Gabby's answer that any and all data is quite key.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Matt. And the final question then, and I know that there's lots of use cases, potentially thousands for a customer data platform, but in your opinion, as the expert panel, what are the top use cases for a customer data platform investment? Jim?
Yeah, I'll start with that one. So if you look at the CDP Institute's definition of what a customer data platform is. It is defined as a customer data platform is packaged software that creates a persistent, unified customer database that is accessible to other systems. So the key use cases are generally within that sentence.
Yeah, I think as well, Jim, I think use cases they're sort of great to think about when we look at sort of new technologies. We look at sort of CDPs and everything else as well. But I think you've hit the nail on the head where the use cases really are all about actually using the data and being able to actually leverage the data as well from across all of those different disparate systems, regardless of the sort of the industry or vertical or the geography of the organization.
And I think, Matt, too, it's not just industry or vertical, but understanding both the online and the offline interactions and being able to bring that together to ultimately power your analytics and segmentation. It makes it more effective when you have that full picture from across the board.
Yeah, just to kind of throw something else in there. If you're talking about marketing use cases for a CDP, it extends out to all of the resolution of addressing risk, automation, removing issues, being compliant, being having the governance around handling your data. So you have the resolution piece there of removing risks and all of that stuff. That has value. There is key use case elements there. But when you move into aspirational stuff, you're talking about personalization, segmentation, analytics, next best action. They're all interdependent. The outputs of personalization, targeting, engaging customers and prospects alike is the key reason why marketeers want this.
No, I'd absolutely agree, Jim. I think the other thing, we touched upon this already, is one of the other key use cases I tend to see is about making data available to other systems as well. And I see this in pretty much all the conversations I tend to have. We're talking about BI teams, we're talking about being able to pass data out to things like operational systems, like CRM platforms, as Gabby touched upon earlier on, so that they could be working off that clean, robust data foundation as well. And the same with anyone who's touching customer data from, really it's all about right across the business, solving all of the historical sort of data problems and removing those processes so that you have access to that clean data as well.
Great, thanks guys. So I'm going to round off the webinar now. Thank you everyone for staying on the line. I hope you've found that useful, and hopefully if you did have some questions, then we've managed to answer some. If you don't, then of course post some more questions to us. There's a survey coming out later today to see what you thought about Join. Maybe post your questions in there, or do indeed go to our website. The contact form at blueven.com. You can post some questions there as well, and we will get back to you, I promise. Okay, so next up at Join Digital, episode 2 is an exclusive interview with David Raab. So that's going to be starting in about 16 minutes. So in about 6 minutes from now, you will get your 10-minute reminder email. So when that comes through, click on that, and we will see you very shortly for that session, I do hope. Okay, wherever you are, thank you very much, and hope to see you again. Thanks, bye-bye.